And so for a lot of survivors of sexual abuse, it's common to fall in a...
Okay. Get the stretcher in and get you moving.
Okay, cool.
All right, you ready?
Yes, hold on, but don't fall out.
Eating habit.
I have been working hard towards it.
If you work hard, it'll show on the scale. But for recovery for the skin surgery, so we can do that and make sure.
I'm just really mad at myself right now because I've been working so hard.
Number 10, Tiffany Barker. Tiffany Barker had been blessed by fate with all the elements that make a woman stunning, but her beauty and her health were marred by more than 650 pounds of fat on her frame. Her story hit all the emotional buttons with the audience. While she discussed how she loved shopping for food on her TV debut, she slowly made her way through a grocery store. But the joy stopped there as Barker's struggles quickly became apparent. Shopping with boyfriend Aaron Coronado, she got overcome by pain and exhaustion and had to quickly return to her car after little exertion. She was in severe pain, and the culprits were her hip and legs, which were surely running out of the strength to carry her enormous weight. She barely had the energy and capacity to return to her car. It was clear that life had become a challenging chore instead of a pleasure for her, so why had Tiffany let it go so bad? Like all deeply entrenched habits, Tiffany's habit of overindulging in food had its roots in her childhood. Instead of careless belief in parental love and the sense of safety which comes from having doting parents, Tiffany was witness to the verbal maltreatment of an emotional bully of a father who spent his days berating her mother.
You're gonna have to help me.
All right.
My hip's pretty bad today. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna head to work.
No deal. Off of your plate, you couldn't leave the table, and oftentimes he would put way too much. Describe my father's cooking style as butter fried in butter. He was taught, always been a daddy's girl, and then I realized just how verbally abusive and manipulative my father could be. When I started to defend my mom, I realized just how...
She eventually took on the fight on her mother's behalf, clashing with a father who left her an emotional mess. She turned to food in search of the comfort and happiness she should have gotten from her parents. Instead, she became trapped in another dysfunctional relationship which took over her life. Desperate to get help, Barker traveled to Houston to work with the famed bariatric surgeon Dr. Yunan Nazaruddin with her boyfriend Coronado and cousin Jasmine Philpott. She was dispatched to Dr. Lola, who helped her find her way out of the trap she had fallen in and helped her face her food demons. Under Lola's expert and assured guidance, she went so far as to look for a resolution with her father. Her attempts were at first rebuffed, but she kept at it and finally found catharsis from the deeply ingrained pain which had pushed her towards food. The whole strategy worked, as throughout the show, she lost a tremendous amount of weight. At the 3-month mark, she uprooted her life and moved to Houston and kept to a strict 1,200 calorie a day diet. The experience was fraught with emotion, but she continued to persevere. An inflamed gallbladder began to cause difficulties, but she pushed through, achieving a weight of 555 pounds by month 7 and went ahead with the surgery. At 12 months, she weighed 415 pounds with a weight loss of more than 250 pounds. Tiffany turned out to be a success story and inspired plenty of fans to start their own journeys of recovery, but that's not what this next person experienced.
You'd be well under 600 at this point. So you're nowhere close to your goal. You want to tell me what happened? Surgery.
But we already moved down here so that it's easier.
Well, I appreciate that. And you were supposed to lose. You got it?
Yes.
Great. Because you're running out of time. Some of the tests, but if you have gallbladder attack before then, and we're forced to do surgery on you now while you're over 600 pounds, her food.
Recently, we had a talk, and he told me he would try and change, and he's saying no to not put him in an uncomfortable situation.
Why don't you let him speak for himself? One sign of a bully is, and he's still feeding you, so you both have a lot of work to do. But you need to figure it out now, because of his lack of effort over the last 2 months. She's being given a chance to save her life at a time what she needs. Then she's gonna run out of time. And there'll be very little anyone can do to help her.
Number 9, Mercedes Cephas. Mercedes was a 37-year-old mother of 2 from Ohio. When she was on the show, she weighed 773 pounds and suffered from severe lymphedema. At 37 years old, Mercedes Cephas had become a burden on her family. She had become bedbound, depending on her 2 children and her professional caregiver, Brittany, to take care of her. Her 11-year-old daughter was not only caring for her, but also playing half-mother to her young brother. Life was bizarre for these kids, but it was mostly a tragedy for Mercedes, who had already passed the point of no return. She was imprisoned within the 4 walls of her house, watching the world function, and life pass her by as a silent spectator. It was obvious that Mercedes was her own victim and only had herself to blame for the mess her life had become, or were there others to share in that blame? Her father has a lot to answer for. His verbal bullying drove her mom to separate from her father when she was still young, but that wasn't enough. Mercedes alleged that she and her sisters were carnally maltreated by their father.
Be around your father, but knowing that those things would happen.
Mom paid more attention to my other sisters than me.
That must have been difficult for you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that happened to you. That must have
He
been.
passed away last year.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And I didn't get to go to church.
And were you able to forgive him, Mercedes?
Yeah, I forget my dad. I've been forgetting.
By a parent, it's not uncommon for you to love your father and nobody's judging him, but he hurt you. To self-soothe is a coping mechanism.
Yeah, basically. I'm paying to take care of me, and I know it's taking toll on my daughter. She not be able to
Do to help care for you. And so I want you to take a minute and think about
to help me and take care of me instead of me taking care of her.
This led a scared and ashamed young child to seek refuge in food, which had become a double-edged sword for her. While it provided her with the emotional crutches Mercedes had been seeking, it also trapped her in the clutches of an enemy bent upon taking over her life, and that enemy had succeeded. Scared by the prospect of an early end to her life, she sought help from Dr. Nazaruddin. It was just in time, as she was weighing an astonishing 770 pounds on the weighing scale, but she didn't realize that there were no quick fixes to her problem, and any help she was going to get had to come from herself. Throughout the course of the show, she was only able to lose around 80 pounds and had a myriad of reasons to give Dr. Now at each weigh-in for why she hadn't dropped more. Ultimately, she wasn't able to get the weight loss surgery because she didn't lose enough weight, and after returning from Houston, she began a GoFundMe campaign to raise money for the procedure. Number 8. Justin McSwain. At just 27 years old, Justin McSwain was struggling. He had gained nearly 400 pounds in just 4 years, putting him at 687 pounds, and because of his size, he could no longer go to an office and work. The young college graduate from South Carolina, who once had his whole life in front of him, was housebound and barely able to perform basic activities like walking around the block. McSwain's addiction to food began as a child when, following his parents' divorce, the youngster found it hard to fit in with his father's new family. By 14, McSwain was more than 200 pounds, and by the time he reached adulthood, his time was more than halfway over due to his immense weight gain. McSwain was left beating himself up for letting his weight get so out of control that it left him struggling to breathe at times, unable to complete even ordinary tasks. He developed debilitating anxiety and agoraphobia and had all of his food delivered to him so he didn't have to go outside. And that food wasn't limited to healthy proportions by any standards. Despite knowing how much harm his love affair with food had done to him, he didn't know how to stop. It was clear he needed a plan of action to get his life back on track, and who better than Dr. Nazaruddin to do that? Justin McSwain uprooted his life in South Carolina to visit Dr. Yunam Nazaruddin in Houston and became a legend in the process. Perhaps one of the most memorable moments were of him struggling to fit into a rental car to make his way over to Dr. Now's office at over 700 pounds.
Right.
right.
Awesome.
But before we move ahead, you need to move down here to Houston. Let me know, we'll get you on schedule as long as you continue to lose and stay on track, okay? And the progress he has made. but ultimately to be successful in the long term. But if you don't, we won't be able to do weight loss surgery, and we will need to start this process again. All right, keep losing like you are and stay on track. And I'll wait for...
Adopting a healthy lifestyle wasn't easy for Justin, who had a shockingly tragic first weigh-in. Initially hoping his weight would be in the upper 500s or lower 600s at least, he was devastated when the scale showed 687.5 pounds. He had to lose 92 pounds before the legendary Dr. Now would even consider working on him. The meeting with Dr. Now had pumped new life into McSwain's existence, and he was determined to turn his life around for the better. And boy, did he ever do that. He didn't let go of his eating out ways, but instead of going for deep-fried goodies, he switched to grilled proteins and started treating sodas like they were his personal kryptonite, and guess what? It worked. Happily, by the end of his time on My 600-Pound Life, McSwain had lost a whopping 334 pounds total. Now 30 years old, McSwain has lost more than 450 pounds and has become a resounding success story coming from the show. Number 7. Octavia Nichelle. Octavia Gehagans, aka Octavia Nichelle, epitomizes tenacity, endurance, and resolute will. Her tale began tragically, but she showed that everything is possible if one is steadfast in pursuing their objectives. Octavia Nichelle became bedridden as a result of her weight, which peaked at 692 pounds. Her condition had deteriorated to the point where she hadn't been inside a vehicle for years, necessitating the arrival of a team of paramedics to put her in the back of a van and transport her to Dr. Now in Houston, Texas. The sight of paramedics and firefighters crawling over her packed house and carrying her enormous form out of her home is seared onto our brains, leaving us and Octavia traumatized for the rest of our lives.
Okay, all right.
I'll just sit up on the side of the bed.
Count it out for me.
2, 3.
I got you. You ain't going nowhere.
Good luck to you.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
I wanted her to hit her goal and get to a healthier place. To make this trip safer,
It's embarrassing to have all of this just to be able to leave my apartment. Be good, okay? Promise me.
I know it's God's will that she goes down here and does this, and he's gonna take care of her.
It also made us realize beyond the shadow of a doubt that Octavia was determined to put her life back together, and each step of the way, no matter how painful, was going to represent an undeniable win for her. It turned out that getting loaded into the van was only the first battle, and the actual war came later, with 2 days of painfully long traveling in the back of the van with no one but the driver to keep her company. Unfortunately, that traveling led to Octavia being admitted to the hospital at Dr. Now's insistence. So why did life take Octavia on such a rough ride, and how did she end up being addicted to food? Gehagans had a rough childhood because she grew up in an abusive home where she had to witness her stepfather frequently engage in aggressive behavior with her mother. She was allegedly carnally maltreated by her stepfather. Octavia turned to food for solace, and by the time she was 20, she weighed roughly 500 pounds. Things worsened after her mother's demise 5 years later. She didn't even have the time to mourn this loss, as she was left to care for her little sister Desiree, who soon got married and moved away from home. Octavia's eating patterns soon spiraled out of control as she began to approach 700 pounds following Desiree's marriage. When she finally arrived in Houston, she weighed 692 pounds. Octavia was having very serious issues with mobility. She took all the weight loss instructions seriously and lost a dramatic number of pounds. While relapse is a big deal for people who get bariatric surgery, Octavia stuck to her healthy lifestyle and lost about 236 pounds. She brought her weight down to an impressive 456 pounds, turning her life into a tale of perseverance in the face of extreme odds.
right now that we need to address. Other than your weight and lack of ability to get up and move, almost 700 pounds. That's very concerning. So go to rehab for a couple of months and see if we can build up some strength on your, to get those diet instructions so she understands what's going on, because she's still a lot of work to do. We started you on a 1,200 calorie a day diet so we can get your weight down. Be able to lose at least 50 pounds a month.
Okay.
And if you do that, then I will approve you. We get the ambulance to take you to rehab, and you're gonna start working with them every day.
Number 6, Shanae Murray. Shanae Murray is no stranger to drama. Shanae has been one of the most controversial cast members the show has seen thus far. Even though times were pretty bleak for her when Shanae Murray appeared on the 6th season of the show in 2018, that tendency to surround herself with drama did not end. She had a pretty rough time on the show, but the question is whether that rough time was experienced by Shanae or Dr. Now. This was one tumultuous doctor-patient relationship you don't come across very often, but my 600-pound life does have its fair share of oddballs, and Shanae was most definitely the queen among them. The mind games she proceeded to play with the entire team left us horrified and amused by turns. The 27-year-old Indiana resident weighed around 712 pounds when she first appeared on the show, making her one of the heaviest participants of all time. Following routine health checks, it also revealed her BMI was 5 times the average healthy BMI range. Dr. Now tried time and time again to help motivate Shanae and guide her in the right direction. Unfortunately, Shanae refused to follow the doctor's suggestions. Shanae had struggled with her weight from an early age, and her traumatic past meant she found it difficult to properly commit to Dr. Now's plan. But trauma or not, it was clear that Shanae wasn't only lying to others, she was also lying to herself, and her husband Freddie was proving to be a part of that problem.
To start eating healthy. I haven't had time to do anything.
There is no excuse for you eating medicine for twice that amount of time. And I know what I'm talking about. Your weight is not a result. No, I know what I'm talking about. I'm telling you simple science. And you don't want to listen, so...
Dr. Now had a regime planned out for Murray, but rather than do the work, she elected to continue her bad choices. Her go-to solution for her problems involved lying to her doctor and applying quick and dangerous fixes. Like in one clip, Shanae had turned up at the hospital claiming she was suffering from stomach pain. Dr. Now discovered she was taking water pills to try and lose weight. When confronted by Dr. Now on her bad eating habits, which were contributing to her weight gain, she had the temerity to attribute it all to water weight. In a very short time, Shanae had proven that she had no plans to put herself through the discipline and labor of working hard for weight loss. Instead of losing weight, she was doggedly holding on to the one she had already accumulated and was fast on her way to taking on even more.
Shanae, let's talk about where you're at.
Okay, first off, I want to apologize to you. And I'm apologizing because I feel like that I offended you.
Is to get you healthy. And that is what will mean most to me. But instead, you gain for the apology. I will accept it when you lose your weight. I need to see how I'm supposed to. There is no excuse for your lack of progress. But we giving you all the help and resources you need. And we even help you. I can give you any more tools that I have given you right now. And this is all up to you.
After failing to meet her initial weight loss target set by Dr. Now, she was later hospitalized and managed to drop around 91 pounds. We were treated to the astonishing sight of Dr. Now going head-to-head with this difficult patient. A clearly exacerbated doctor appeared with empty pizza boxes in his hands as proof that Shanae was not only indulging in fried food, but she was going so far as to have her husband throw her trash in another patient's basket to cover her tracks. During Shanae's final weigh-in on the show, it was revealed that she had actually gained 43 pounds and ended up avoiding all contact with Dr. Now soon after, dropping out of the program.
Shanae, the lying need to stop now. Okay, Shanae? Here's the situation. One trash towards somebody else's trash.
It was me that ate it. She didn't eat any of that.
Are you eating this junk and
No.
you keep lying to me?
She didn't eat
I'm
it.
not eating any of that.
Then how come you're not working
Shanae,
everything?
calm
We're
down.
giving you every tool to lose weight and you telling us all this lie? You know we're eating. But for some reason you think if you just hold to your lie, then maybe all this...
To get the weight off, the surgery's not gonna fix it.
Okay.
It's just a tool.
Ask the same question. Look at me again. You have weight loss surgery, you lose weight, right?
Yes.
Okay, because
Yes.
you don't change, there is nothing we can do to help you.
She didn't eat anything. That was me.
None of your tests show that you're retaining water, okay? You're not 700 pounds of water. Then you don't need our help.
I do need help.
Okay, do you think I'm stupid? I don't
Well, how
understand
about
that
this?
when you...
Send me-
on it.
I don't want her to get one herself, and I don't
She
want you to
just
get
told
one
me
on her.
we don't know anything
No,
about
she
her
just speaking.
fluid
She wasn't
retention.
trying
She
to, like,
knows
be
about it.
disrespectful.
I know. Get over that, okay? That's not reality, okay? That's a mistake, okay?
Number 5, Brandon Scott. Brandon appeared on the show with the weight of the world on his shoulders. Brandon is a talented singer from Columbus, Ohio, and he was pursuing a career in music. To the aspiring musician, sound was his life, and he used it to make other people's lives beautiful. If only he had been giving tender, loving care to his body as well. Unfortunately, the only treats he had been feeding his soul with had been the deep-fried, calorie-laden kind, and they hadn't done justice to the potential talent trapped inside this body. Due to his weight and food addiction, he couldn't make progress in his career.
27.
Yes.
So you lost 141 pounds in 2 months, huh?
Yes.
It's high protein and low carb, and it's limited to 1,200 calories a day. And what I want you to do...
At the young age of 33, he was unable to be a complete man to the love of his life, his girlfriend Taylor Cunt, whom he was eager to marry, but couldn't make those promises a reality if he didn't turn his life around. It was the fear of losing her that sent him off chasing after Dr. Nazaruddin to help him lose weight. His desperation made him willing to take on the daunting task of flying to Houston. As Brandon made his way through the airport, the young man was left in tears as fellow passengers gawked at him and made comments about his weight. He eventually did make it to Dr. Now's office, but things didn't go as planned. Along with being extremely overweight, Brandon also suffered from lymphedema, which is swelling in an arm or a leg caused by a lymphatic system blockage. He managed to lose an impressive 335 pounds while this episode was filming, making him one of the biggest weight loss success stories of his season. While Brandon gets props for getting through the rigorous process of losing weight, he had a pretty good support system as well. A big part of what made him lose so much weight so fast was his girlfriend. She was with him through it all and decided to go on the diet with him. He had always felt he couldn't ask her to marry him due to his weight. All that changed, however, due to his weight loss, and he turned his tragedy into a success story. He eventually proposed to her, and they're married and living happily in Nashville, Tennessee, and now he's even turned his attention to kickstarting his musical career.
So you're down to 265 pounds today?
Yes, sir.
All right. So you lost over 450 pounds.
Yes, sir.
Almost twice as much as you weigh now.
That's right. Something to look at, you know.
Well, you know, you had some up and down, but you stay with the program, the healing process.
Well, I'm thinking about moving to Tennessee, to Nashville, the music city.
So if you have to do that, go ahead. And when you're ready for skin surgery, that you recover from the surgery and there is no issues with...
Number 4, Lupe Simano. Lupe Simano appeared on the show's 4th season in 2016 for the first time, and what a sight she was. Lupe was 39 years old and 642 pounds at the beginning of her episode. At the time, Lupe had been confined to her bed for over a decade, and her life had become a painful existence confined within the 4 walls of her bedroom. Her husband, Gilbert Donovan, had become more like a caretaker for her than a husband, which really tested their relationship, maybe even leading to its eventual collapse. Her struggles with food addiction and weight gain started at a profoundly young age.
Anything for myself. And my body's starting to break down. I'm in pain and I feel helpless, worthless. I walked into the urine. I never walked out. Ready?
About 6 months, and We just hit it off.
It didn't have donut holes.
So what'd you get?
It really hit me in the heart. She said that she was praying to God that he would send somebody to her that would...
It all began with perhaps one of the most painful memories of Luke's young life. She recounted the harrowing experience of herself and her sister being put in a bathtub by her father, who left the bathroom and never returned to their home ever again. Luke stayed in the bathtub with her sister, waiting for her father to come back for hours before realizing that he had actually walked out of their lives. The sense of abandonment that Luke developed due to her father's desertion ingrained a deep sense of insecurity in her young heart. She tried to fill the gap left by her missing father by eating copious amounts of food for the rest of her life, never feeling full and happy. The only thing that food did to her, however, was to take away from her the one chance she had to live a full life. Liv's tragedies followed closely in her footsteps into her adulthood.
I'm very scared for her, especially it being so far away. But if she doesn't get...
I want to thank everybody for coming for Lupa's farewell dinner that we're having, that we're celebrating.
As a middle-aged woman, she found herself married to a man who felt shackled by her side instead of being a partner in her life. She felt a burden to her entire family, tied to a bed which had become a prison for her. Her health was in such dire strait that the journey she made to Dr. Nazaruddin's clinic put such a severe strain on her heart that she had to be hospitalized immediately. It was just a scare she needed to notch up her determination to reclaim her life, and she showed her audience what a warrior queen she was at heart, even though confined within the decaying carcass that was her body. She made a move across the country, did all the hard work, even though there were no guarantees of success. She eventually managed to secure a spot for herself on the list of patients getting gastric bypass surgery from Dr. Now, and managed to turn her life around by losing an incredible 400 pounds.
And it started getting physical, so I had to take myself out of this situation, you know?
Well, I'm sorry. And once you hit your target, our goal will be to try to fix your hip. So make sure your life will be completely changed.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you in more, which is a lot of weight. Hopefully she will not allow Gilbert to do anything to slow down her progress.
Number 3, Gina Crassley. Gina appeared on My 600 Pound Life Season 8 in January 2020 during Episode 5. Like so many other cases on the show, Gina's tragedy began with her childhood spent in a home terrorized by the temper tantrums of a maltreating father. What were the reasons for that maltreatment, you ask? As confirmed by Gina herself, her father's mistreatment emerged due to her defiance. The reasons for her acting out were deeply mired in a sense of abandonment she felt from her mother. Her mother had been caught up in the issues of her agoraphobic sister. As the maltreatment within the house increased, the two sisters were abandoned by their only and last hope in a dark world by their mother.
Marriage that I want because of the weight that she's at.
Eating, it makes me feel good, it makes me feel safe, it makes me feel happy.
Because I feel like she's given up completely.
And I'll get your bucket and get that ready for you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's to get your clothes and your towel, and then you're all set to get washed up, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Help me get powdered and get dressed.
Yes.
Once their mother divorced from her husband, the girls were left to their own devices, trying to cope with a father who was hell-bent on taking out his frustrations on his own daughters. The house, which should have been a sanctuary, became a source of deep unhappiness and fear for them. They found their combined escape in the local food joints, where they spent hours eating and gorging themselves in the next best thing to parental love, food. That was the beginning of her food addiction, which had her hooked worse than narcotics. Eating was definitely a major source of solace, and it was Gina's coping mechanism as she lived with abuse, depression, and anxiety. She shared that by the time she graduated from high school, she was about 450 pounds. Her weight rose to 500 pounds by the age of 19. As she entered adulthood, her absconding mother returned out of a sense of guilt to her daughters. Gina even met and fell in love with the love of her life, her wife Beth, but her dependency on food was too deep to be kicked to the curb that easily. When she reached Dr. Now, Gina weighed in about 607 pounds, and to qualify for bariatric surgery, she needed to slim down on her own.
Well, that's normal to be nervous because you're going to surgery, you're not going to picnic.
Right, that's true.
Okay. I guess I'm moving in the right direction. But you show me today that you're not sticking with it like you need. Or getting weight loss surgery from me. You got it?
I got it. I understand.
They have to getting healthy today. But we can't move ahead with surgery if she's still gaining weight. 5 months ago, I was hopeful it was a sign that she was finally starting to turn things around.
Needs to get your clothes and your towel, and then you're all set to get washed up, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm just really mad at myself right now because I've been working so hard. Help me get powdered and get dressed?
Yes.
The New Jersey resident struggled with shedding weight and even had her surgery canceled due to that issue. However, she was given several chances to change. Meanwhile, things weren't easy at home for her. Gina lived with her wife, sister, mother, dog, and sister's fiance, which made it overcrowded. Gina's living situation was putting a definite strain on her marriage with Beth. While Gina's own body measurements weren't helping matters when it came to their intimate life, the strain on their marriage eventually became quite apparent to the rest of the family, and it was becoming a hot topic for discussion. It wasn't only imperative for Gina to lose the extra weight to save her marriage, it was a necessity if she was to become independent and start contributing financially to her marriage so the two could move to an independent residence. Unfortunately, Gina's own lack of focus on her weight loss journey didn't show any promising changes in her life, and she was unable to lose weight as a result. Eventually, she was dropped by Dr. Now from the program, who felt she needed to grow up before tackling surgery. Number 2. Shannon Lowry. When she was on the show in 2021, the resident of Tucson, Arizona was roughly 739 pounds. Shannon went into heartbreaking detail about her unhealthy relationship with food, and her sorry tale pulled at our heartstrings. When she was a child, she really only had her father around, who was always working and never really had the time to be at home with her. He also happened to work in fast food, so when she would go to his place of work, she would just eat incessantly. Driven by a lack of emotional comfort in her life and the loneliness which had become a partner to her very existence, Shannon started using food as a band-aid whenever she felt lonely or left out, which was pretty much all the time. The habits she developed as a young girl followed her into adulthood, where they proceeded to rob her of any chance at a normal existence. It's true when it's said that what we sow is what we reap. Too large to care for herself even at middle age, Shannon had to move into a care home so she could be looked after, where she spent her time playing video games. Not enough of a platform, but it was enough to help her meet Simon, who turned out to be the only source of comfort besides food in her life. Once married, Shannon had found a person who was willing to take care of her and was able to live independently in a house with her husband. Her brush with nursing homes didn't change her eating habits though, and once under the same roof as her husband, she found a better source to indulge her eating behaviors. Her husband was obviously frustrated and extremely concerned for the person who had come to mean a lot to him in his life. Shannon's food addiction was taking a toll on her marriage, and though her husband was concerned for her health and her safety, he knew that she had to change her life if their marriage was to survive. Her father doted on her and had been taking care of her for the last 40 years of her life, but had reached a point where he could no longer take care of the adult he helped bring into this world, who should have been taking care of her father instead of it being the other way around. It was heartbreaking to see how much love Shannon was surrounded by, yet she was helpless against the pull of her self-defeating ways.
It was a little easier this time.
All right, good. You lost some weight? Still not good.
I know, and I'm gonna do better.
Well, what did you change last time? Accurate, then you need to work harder. Because at this rate, if you don't pick up the pace, it is more likely that...
Yes, sir.
Even though the trip was easier, I'm still concerned about how your body is on the trip back. But if you make it down to that weight and you arrange to move to Houston, then we're going to talk. Simon, I want you to do better and help her make more progress.
Yeah, I'll do everything I can.
So, Sharon, the goal is still to lose 150 pounds in 2 months.
Okay.
You got that?
Yes, sir, I do. and we're gonna move down here.
Okay, great. But hopefully it continues to only lose at this rate. So it's very important Shannon starts making a lot more progress now. But we are still not going to be able to move ahead and do anything for her that will make any long-term decision. She continues that and doesn't wait too much longer to do what she needs so we can move ahead with her.
The devotion of the two men in her life, her husband Simon and her father, were unmistakable, but the only thing missing from her existence was for Shannon to love herself enough to make the effort to change her life's trajectory. She finally made the trek to Texas to visit Dr. Now to see if he could help her regain some control over her health. Between being hospitalized and having to travel such a great distance, it wasn't easy on Lowry, but by the end of her episode, she was able to lose 90 pounds over the course of 13 months. It's a far cry from the 150 pounds Dr. Now wanted her to lose in just 2 months, but at least it was progress in the right direction.
Do something for pain, and we need to do some tests, make sure you don't have blood clot in you. I gave you the diet and exercises with a goal to lose 100 pounds to calm down.
I don't know.
Well, what's the issue with you? You keep overeating.
From him,
Mm-hmm.
and he gives in and gives it to me.
But how are we going to, you're not going to survive?
That's what I'm scared of.
Well, that should lead you. So this mass that you have in here, and we need to address because you look to be getting an infection there.
Number 1, Cynthia Wells. The Oklahoma native was 42 when she debuted on the hit series in 2017, weighing over 610 pounds. Cynthia Wells, who appeared in Season 5, Episode 3 of the show, had one of the most engaging stories because of everything her family had endured before and during her weight loss journey. At the time, Cynthia was dealing with multiple obstacles, such as the inability to move and other health issues. A mother of 5 children, the Oklahoma native was not only unable to take care of herself well, but was also incapable of looking after her children.
Kaya!
Hour, my daughter comes in and she'll clean out the back of my legs because my arm. Ukiah's 11, Jordan is 10, and Shaquille is 7. And my biggest thing right now is just being a better mother.
When I see my mom hurting a lot, it makes me feel.
Her weight had become a burden on her family because it made her body weak. She needed help from her then 11-year-old daughter Yukia to help her clean the corners of her legs and even make breakfast for everyone. Cynthia had been overweight as an adult, which kept increasing despite facing bullying and body image issues. In her late 20s, she also had to take custody of her cousin's children who were being maltreated by their father since the mother of the 3 kids and Cynthia's cousin was unable to raise them. However, Cynthia also wanted children of her own, so she dated and gave birth to her 2 youngest children. While giving birth to her youngest child, she already weighed around 480 pounds, which spiraled up later. In taking care of all of her children, she forgot to look after herself and ended up in an almost irreversible state. But Cynthia had a growing fear that her body would give up before she got the chance to see her kids grow up. She wanted to be present and active in her children's lives, and thus she made her journey to Dr. Now's clinic in Houston with her brother.
Care of 5 children at that weight. So you're 42 and they like kids. You need to start making changes now. I want you to walk. There's a problem with you. You need to lose the 30 pounds if you want this chance, okay?
So
what kind of sickness?
I've had like a upper respiratory.
Yeah, having an upper respiratory.
You know,
What?
Hadn't been exercising.
We're not talking about exercise, okay? We're talking about your eating habit.
Cynthia was first asked to lose over 30 pounds. When she was unable to do so after 2 appointments, she got frustrated and decided to leave the weight loss program. Upon being asked to consult a therapist to address her emotional attachment to food, she declared that she had decided to stop trying to live up to everyone's expectations for her and lose weight on her own.
I gained 4 pounds. And that was a major issue for him.
So what do you say the next step? Back on track.
And I'm struggling to pay to get down to Texas. But this doctor, my kids look at me every answer because I'm trying to get my ass down here.
And if this is what it's gonna turn me into.
The people who care about you, so keep going in that direction.
But I'm sacrificing. Look what I'm sacrificing, Clarence.
Due to her no-nonsense attitude and her outspoken nature, she was regarded as one of the most difficult patients Dr. Now had to deal with on his program, but that criticism could be termed as too harsh. Cynthia's opposition to the demands put on her by the program and her eventual decision to step out of it stemmed clearly from the financial constraints being put on her budget due to the lengthy traveling and the type of food she was being asked to eat. To her, every morsel of the high-protein diet she was commanded to adhere to strictly was a morsel of food she was snatching from the mouths of the 5 children under her care. This burden was too much for the struggling Cynthia, and she simply broke away from the program. She finally managed to turn her life around after shedding a good amount of weight and was able to have a full-on teaching career and attend as many dancer recitals as she wanted, and we couldn't be any happier for her. That's all we have for you in today's video, and join us next time.